fellow collectors, and welcome to Long's Toys. Today we are taking a look at the 8th Premium Bandai entry into the Revolve Change figure line for Kamen Rider Geats. This is the Kamen Rider Tycoon Bujin sword and Nadge Sparrow and Lopo and Hakubi set. And the name needs a little work, but basically the reason it's called that is because, of course, we're getting Bujin's sword here, but then you also get helmets for Nadge Sparrow and Lopo and Hakubi, but I feel like they got to come up with something better than that. It's just a huge, long name. In any case, as you can see, Bujin's sword here on the front, looking very cool. I'm pretty excited for this one. Up top here, you get a kind of full readout of what's included here. So you have both parts coming in the kind of upper half configuration. So it is possible to still use these like all the rest of the line if you want to mix and match. I guess, you know, in universe, it doesn't really make sense. It's kind of one complete form. But if you wanted to, you certainly can do that here. That play pattern is still here. I also kind of think it's funny that this is the part that is meant to be the lower half, and the red eyes are actually connected to that part. I guess they're just confident enough that the red visor will look better with the black behind it, I guess to make it look more sinister. You get the cape here, you get a couple of alternate hand pieces. You can actually pop off these feet pieces and connect some better looking hands, which is actually a nice feature. You get the sword, you get the sheath. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't look like the sword actually fits into the sheath, so they give you kind of a hilt piece so that if you want it to look like it's in the sheath, you can connect that. Otherwise, you can take that off when the sword's out, and you can kind of hold both. And then, of course, we get those extra helmets there, like I mentioned. So, a lot packed into this one. I think it's going to be pretty cool. Over here on the side, just a nice picture of Bujin's sword, holding the sword in the sheath. Over here, holding the sword and the sheath separately. Not really much going on down the bottom, just have some warnings and whatnot. And then you actually have some cool shots here of those helmets on, you know, the previous releases for the forms they used in the show. So none of this is included, just the helmets. But if you have the previous releases, you can replicate these forms. So pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead, get everything out of the box here, and we'll take a closer look. So here's everything that's included in the set. We'll run through these little helmets first, and then I'll probably put them off to the side, and we'll revisit them a little bit later. But here is Lopo's helmet. I think it looks pretty great. Colors really nice. You have that little bit of white paint there on the front. I think that came out great. We have Nadge Sparrow. Again, simplistic, but looking good. Then we have Hakubi, the skunk. This is Tycoon's sister. I think this one came out great. Really nice paint applications on this one. And then, of course, we have the head here for Bujin's sword itself. Now, spoiler alert, this does not connect to the head well, and I'm really kind of bummed about it. Like, this is the main thing that it needs to do, and it just doesn't really connect that well. I think you're supposed to, you can kind of see how there's kind of like a little tab here, and that's supposed to kind of fit into the bottom section of this, and you can kind of see how, well, if I don't throw it at the camera, you can see it. There's kind of a mold in here, like a U, that I think is supposed to fit into the upper part of this. And I've really tried everything. I've tried to mash it on here. I've tried to like hook and then bring it over. It really doesn't connect all that well. You just kind of have to rely on gravity to help. And that's about as best as I can do. It's not terrible, but it really should connect. And I don't understand why they did this. Like, just put a hole at the top, put a little peg on the top of here. Why does it have to be more difficult than that? I don't understand why they went with this whole, like, weird rectangle here on the back and try to mold it in that. It just seems like there were so many easier ways to get these helmets to connect. Or really just don't do any of that and just rely on the friction of pushing this down. Like, mold it in a better way so that it's much easier to just friction this down onto it. Like, it's not too bad, but it's very strange to me. The way they went about that was all weird. We have these extra hand pieces, so you can do these kind of like cool posing hands, which is nice. They only give you one like better grasping hand, and this is mainly for the sheath or scabbard, whatever you'd like to call it, so he can hold that. The sword will fit into the normal like foot style hand, no problem, and honestly, when the sword's in there, you can hardly tell that it used to be a foot, so it's not that big of a deal. But here is the piece that pops out. So it's just the hilt. So if you want him to be holding both of these, you would just use these two pieces. If you want him to be holding the sword, and there is a way to put this in. So there we go. Now it looks like it's, I mean, yes, it would have been easier to just be able to put this in here, but then I think this would have been a much more hollow piece, and maybe it's too small to do that. So That's my understanding anyway. So going to put these off to the side. The sword looks great. Nice silver paint there for the blade. I think they did a real nice job with that. Really works. You have the cape. The cape is nothing to write home about. It's just a piece of plastic molded to look like a cape. It's perfectly fine. And then you have the little... Tycoon has always had that little, like, band around his thigh. They've done it in black here. It hardly seems necessary, but I guess just to stay consistent. So that's what they've done. So here is the Bujin sword half, which I think looks fantastic. All of the paint here on the chest looks really nice. The driver down here looks great. This one has the other half of the driver. So you'll see, you know, you'll complete the full sword there when you put these together, which is awesome. Overall, I think it looks pretty sharp. I'm happy with it. Now, this is just kind of a remold / repaint of Ninja. And you can tell because when you look at the chest here, it has this piece, which is meant to slide down. You can see the gears here. He's got the shurikens here. And I don't remember if that's what it looks like in the show, because it's been a minute. But I'm also realizing that that's why this is painted red, because it's just a carryover from Ninja. But it's fine. I mean, it's just going to be the lower half, so I'm not super worried about it. I'm not going to mix and match these with a ton of other forms. I don't really feel the need. I feel like at this point we understand how the gimmick works, and you'll see it a little bit in play when I transform this into the lower half. But this, to me, this form is meant to stay together the whole time. I'm not going to mix and match these with a bunch of other random pieces. It's possible. It's absolutely possible that play pattern still exists, but let's take a look at Bujin sword in all its glory. So I'm going to start by putting this half off to the side, and we are going to transform this half by going ahead and swinging this down to the side like that. Then we are going to disconnect this piece here from the back like that. That whole piece will swing down to about there. Then I'm going to take the two halves of the torso and rotate them outward. And then when you do that, you'll be able to fold this piece up, and that will kind of rest against the thigh. And then we'll just bring this all straight down. This will rotate to the side, and then we will flip up the hand to now be the foot. And then we'll replicate all of that on this side. So rotate this out to the side, bring this down, rotate this 90 degrees, and then bring that up. So you can see you have this nice silver paint here on the shins now, which looks good. All of this kind of fluorescent yellowish green color is still coming through, which is great. And then this you're just going to kind of tuck back like that. So now we will take this and connect these together like so. And then you will just swing this up and snap that together. Now at this point we'll take the cape, which has a cutout for all of this bulk right here. Let me zoom out here a little bit. Now there are two tab slots right here and here. And that is where the cape is going to peg into. So we're going to slide this up and then peg the cape in. And it can be a little easier said than done, but that wasn't too bad. I think that's connected in pretty well. So now we will pose the legs here a little bit. Now the cape does make him pretty back heavy, so it's going to be a little difficult. And it's also like really splayed out. I thought it would sit a little bit more flat, but because of the way it kind of pegs in. But it's nice because that way it kind of doesn't hinder articulation, so you can still kind of move the legs around a decent amount. At this point, I'm going to pop this hand off, which can be a little easier said than done as well. You just want to kind of, I like to rotate it up. It's just a ball joint, so you can pop that off with not too much difficulty. And then I'm going to go ahead and connect the hand that's meant to hold the scabbard. Now these are really tight, and I can't really tell if they're clicking into the ball joint or not. But you can get it on there to a point where, you know, it's clear that it's moving around, and it shouldn't be an issue, but we'll see how it goes. And then we're going to take the headpiece and drop this on top as best we can, and hope gravity will just help us. So moving this up. Here is Bujin's sword in all his glory. Now, he's really, really back heavy with that cape, so getting him to stand on his own is probably going to be virtually impossible. Maybe I can bring something in to rest that cape on. There we go. That'll work. So we're going to take the sword, pop this in here, and that will just slide right into the foot hand, like so. And then we're going to take this one, and I'll remove the hilt piece so I can slide this in, so it looks like he just took it out of the sheath here. And there we go. So really cool accessories. I like this a lot. You know, if you want to use the opened hands, it's a simple process to just, again, pop this off and pop one of these on, and you have that on either side. Oh, technically, I forgot to connect this little sash piece, but again, I mean, what is it really doing? It's just another black piece to put on an already black thigh piece. But there we go. Now that's connected on. You can hardly see it. But you have nice silver paint here. I'll get in a little bit closer. So like I said before, you can kind of see the sash piece connected now. Silver here. Nice fluorescent yellowish green. Nice silver here. You have these. These feel like loose. I don't know why, but it feels like they want to fall off. I don't think they're going to. But you can see kind of like how that whole piece like rattles around there. It's very strange. The driver looks good. Really nice paint on that. I like how we have the full blade. It would have been nice if they could have replicated the, you know, pop of color on the blade that's exposed out of the sheath. But with that being the connection point, I understand why they might not have wanted to do that. Again, you have more of that fluorescent yellowish green. All the paint here on the chest looks good. So overall, I think it's really successful. I think it's a good form. The cape looks good. It's a bit of a bummer that it makes him so back heavy that it's hard for him to stand. So I'm just going to use this little clear piece I have here to help us out. But overall, I'm pretty happy with him. I mean, articulation is very standard for this line. You have like a ball joint for the head, so that's moving all over the place. I'm sure the helmet's going to pop off when you try to move the head around, so you just have to pop that back on. You have a kind of weird ball joint here, like in the actual torso, as well as a hinge in the shoulder, so a lot of movement there. Can move in and out. Now again, this might move because it is possible to split this open. You have the bicep swivel there. I would say over 90 degrees, slightly over 90 degrees in the elbow. The ball joint for the wrist area should be able to do a waist swivel underneath the driver. Kick pretty decently forward. Pretty decently to the side, maybe 45 degrees there. Can't really kick back all that much, but you have a swivel at the thigh, then you have a swivel above the knee because it needs those joints for when it's, you know, the other half of the body. And then you have kind of like a joint here, a joint here. There's a swivel right like below the knee as well, and then there's like a second knee and then a ball joint here. So the legs get a little wonky, and again, it's just because they need those extra joints when they're arms, and there's no way to like lock them when they're legs. So sometimes getting these guys to stand is a little weird just because of all the extra articulation the legs have for when they're arms. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this. I think it looks good. I really like the paint. I think it's a solid, cohesive form. It looks nice. I like that a lot. I like the blade. I like the sheath. I like the option to, you know, make it look like if I take this out and pop this in, and I always do this backwards the first time. Yep. You can see how there's kind of like a notch to it, so there is a way that it has to go in. It's like a USB cable. If it's wrong the first time, flip it around, try it that way. But you can kind of do something where, like, you know, he's getting ready to pull the sword out, something like that, which is kind of cool. I'm sure you could do it in a much better pose than I'm doing it right now, but it is possible to simulate something like that because you have all those articulation points. You can kind of just have him stand there menacingly with the sword in the sheath. So yeah, all in all, I like this a lot. I think this looks pretty cool. I think this was pretty successful. And I like having one that's kind of cohesive because, you know, for my display purposes, like, he's just going to stay like this all the time. Like, I'm not going to bother mixing and matching this with anything else because this was a cohesive form in the show. And it looks great. I really like it quite a bit. So here are some forms utilizing the other heads. I wanted to try to kind of replicate the picture on the back of the box. So getting all of the other previous releases here, we have Hakubi with Claw, we have Lopo with Zombie, and then we have Nadge Sparrow with Monster. These are all forms they used in the show, and all of these pieces are from previous releases. So the Monster is from the Punk Jack and Naga set, which was a premium Bandai release. Zombie is from the Zombie and Ninja set, which was, I think, one of the last retail sets they did. And then this is the kind of base body that comes with the like smaller raised buckle pieces. That was, I think, the second premium Bandai set. So you have to have a lot of premium, well, I should say previous / premium releases to replicate this picture. But these helmets are what come in this set. So you can use the helmets with this set if you want, of course. But if you've been collecting this line for a while, you know, it really opens up the possibilities with the more helmets that you can get, because you have all of these forms if you've been collecting all this time. And so you can kind of make these things. But again, you could mix and match these. You know, you could pop these helmets on any of these. You could mix the bodies. You could give Monster as the legs for this, or that as the legs, or this is the legs for that. I mean, that's the fun of this line. You can really mix and match so many different possible combinations with this. But these three here, like I said, just for fun, I wanted to replicate how they looked on the back of the box, and I think they look fantastic. I really like this quite a bit. I think this set is a lot of fun. Now, again, it really depends on how much of this line you've collected. If you really just like, hey, I want Bujin's sword, I think he looks cool, I don't really care about the other helmets, that's fine. I think you could still enjoy this set. I will say that this is probably one of the more self-contained sets, because Bujin's sword was such a kind of self-contained form and doesn't really need to mix and match. I think maybe once or twice on the show he did use like boost legs with this form or something like that. And again, that's perfectly possible to do here. You can, if you have boost from the previous release, you can go ahead and switch out the legs. But I like the just kind of classic fully contained form. I just think it looks really sharp, especially with that kind of black and silver and green color scheme. Those colors work really well together, and I think it just looks really sharp. So this is probably one of the more self-contained sets, and if you really wanted to buy just this set, I think you could still enjoy it. But if you've been collecting this line in its entirety, you're really going to get the most out of this set. I mean, these new helmets look great. They look fantastic on these bodies from the previous releases. And again, the mix and match possibilities are almost endless. At this point, if you have collected the entire line, there's a really good amount of different forms and things that you can pull off with it. And so I think it's a lot of fun. Now, it is kind of a shame that it has to be the type of line where you have to buy all of it to fully enjoy it. And I don't want to say that's true, but it almost kind of is true. The more you have, the more you'll enjoy it, and that's kind of a shame. Especially because so much of this line was relegated to premium Bandai releases, but it is the unfortunate truth. If you've collected the entire line, the playability just continues to skyrocket with each new set that you add. So it's really going to be up to you. If you want just Bujin's sword, I think you'll be happy with the figure. But if you have this whole line, I think it's definitely worth picking up, because it's just a really nice addition, and it's going to give you more heads so you can have more contestants into the DGP. You know, there's sets where you can buy extra blank bodies, so if you really wanted to make a display of all of these characters in their entry forms, you know, giving us more heads just adds to that. And we've seen a lot of previous helmet releases. I keep saying heads, I should probably say helmets, but we've seen, I think it was the second, PB01, had a lot of additional helmets as well. And I think it's nice because they could have just put, hey, here's Bujin's sword, here's a couple accessories, a sword, the extra hands. But they wanted to add a little bit more value to the set, so they gave us those extra helmets. And I think that's a really nice thing to do, because it adds to the value if you've been collecting, but also doesn't beef it up so much that the price skyrockets. So I think that was a really nice decision. So I'm just kind of rehashing all my points here, but basically what I'm trying to say is I think this is a fun set. Bujin's sword looks great. The extra helmets are a nice addition. My really only complaint is the fact that the helmet for Bujin's sword doesn't really connect as well as I'd like it. I can't really push it down. It looks fine. I mean, gravity's doing its job. It's not terrible, but I really wish there was just a simpler way to connect these. Honestly, all three of these, just friction on, no problem, and look great. Tycoon's helmet is just a little strange and doesn't want to connect that well. So, minor issue. Overall, I think it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you've been collecting all this time. So, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, thank you so much for watching.